In today's video, I'm going to show you where the quadratic formula comes from. It's not needed for the IGCSE course that you know this, but I found it very just cool. So if you're just studying for IGs and you don't like math that much, then this video is not for you. But if you just want to see, hey, where does this thing come from, then I'm going to quickly show you. And I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison. Basically, we're just going to complete the square with this. I think it's actually a good thing to watch because all the stuff we're going to do is basically rearranging formula with variables. And I think it's good exercise to see and follow along because the skills that we're using is nothing, it's not above what you should be able to do, but it's just going to look a little bit crazy. So if we had an equation like this and we wanted to complete the square, I'm just going to change it. Let's make it this rather a 10 and a 2 just for the first step. Let's make that a 20. Okay. So the first step, if I had this and I had to complete the square, sorry, I'm changing this thing. No, what? Okay, never mind. I'm just going to keep it like this. Okay, I'm going to keep it like this. The first thing you would do is actually, because this is an equation, I'm going to change this. I'm sorry. Make up your mind. So the first thing I see here is there's actually something, there's a 2 in front here, and I know how to solve this by the 2 times 20 and find a factor and all that stuff. But there's a more obvious way, and it's just dividing this 2 away, right? Because this 2, you know, we don't like it and it's an equation. So instead of going like doing weird stuff, we can just divide everything by 2. So I'll divide everything by 2, and I'm left with x squared plus 5x plus 10 is equal to 0. So this is a very normal thing to do. So I'm going to do the same thing here. As I'm going to just divide, there's a number in front here. Instead of it being a nice 2, it's an a, and it's a variable. So I just divide everything by a. Now, it's important to note that a cannot be 0 because then we're dividing by 0. So a can't be 0. Okay, once I've done this, I would have something like x squared plus, this is a fraction, b over a x. Just writing it like that, it's easier to understand, but it's the same as bx over a, but you'll see now why I'm doing the fraction in the front and the x behind it, and plus c over a, and that's 0. So that's the first step that I've done here. The next step would be to take the 10 over on this side, right? So we would do x squared plus 5x is equal to, this is going to be a negative 5. I'm thinking I might run into some trouble here. Sorry guys, I should have thought this through a little bit. I'm just changing that sign to make life a little bit easier later on. Cool. So we'll just move that over. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll just do x squared plus b over ax, and then that is equal to, here it's okay, minus c over a. Okay. Next step here would be to divide this number by 2 and then square it and then add it. I know that's like, what? But I'm going to add this number divided by 2 squared. And because it's an equation, I'm just doing it on both sides. So I'm adding 5 over 2 all squared. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing here, right? So just going to show you, if I would divide b over a divided by 2, that's a bit weird way of writing it. So what I'll rather do, just like with a triangle, you said, you know, half the base, or you said half the base, that's the same as base divided by 2. If I had, let's say I had 10 times a half, would be the same as 10 over 1. So the 10 and the 1 would be doing that, and the 2. So in this case, dividing by 2 and multiplying by a half is the same thing. So b times 1 is going to be b, and a times 2 is just going to be 2a. So instead of writing this weird thing, b over a over 2, I'm just making a 2 underneath. And what I have to do with this number is I have to square it. So obviously these two things aren't the same, but the point is I'm going to take b over a divided by 2, or multiply by a half, and then square it and then add it on both sides. So this is kind of the number I'm adding. So b over 2a squared, I'm adding this, I'm running out of space here, b over 2a all squared. Okay, so it's just, I'm kind of just doing it side by side, so it's easier to follow, because this I know is easier to do than this. Anyway, so now this would be a perfect square, and I would just write x, and then that's a plus, and then 5 over 2 squared. And here I'll have maybe, I'm just going to write it as fractions, because 5 times 5 is 25, and that's over 4. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. This would then be a perfect square, where I have x plus b over 2a. This is all squared. And here I'll just do the negative c over a, and the b times b is going to be b squared, and the 2 times 2 is a 4, and the a times a is a squared. So I've kind of done the same thing. So here, this part I'd want to make, like, add them together. So I'm just going to keep this on, just nothing, not doing anything here. Hopefully we have space in the end. So here I'll have to multiply by 4 tops and bottoms. So I'll have 20 over 4 plus 25 over 4. And here I'm going to do the same, but here it's variables. So the one fraction has 4a squared, and this one only has an a. So how do I get from a to 4a squared? Well, I'm going to multiply with 4a, because 4a times a is going to give 4a squared. So this part stays the same, x plus b over 2a all squared. And I'm multiplying with 4a here, so it's the negative just stays. So there's a 4ac, because I multiplied. And then this is 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. So now I have these two things, which I can just add. On this side, just keeping it the same again, and adding those things. It doesn't really matter which way I add them, right? I can say 25 plus 20, or 20 plus 25. It's going to be the same thing, and all over 4. And here, because the negative is here, I'm just going to kind of put the negative behind. Yeah, I'm writing. Hopefully you guys can follow this. So I'm going to do the b squared first, minus 4ac, and all over 4a squared. Okay. I know it's a bit intimidating. Again, I'm saying you don't have to be able to do this. An AS level, yes, but for now, this is just like interesting. But it's good to follow around what we can do with variables. This side, what do we do here usually? Well, I'm going to just change this into 45 just to make our lives, instead of writing it everything, but I'm going to take the square root on both sides, and because this is a quadratic, I have to remember I'm going to have 2 answers. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take the square root, and here I'm going to have 2 answers if I square this as well. So this becomes x plus b over 2a equals plus minus, and oh wait, I should have done this side first. that's the idea of the video, right? So this would be 5 over 2, and this would be equal to, now the square root of a over b is the same as the square root of a over the square root of b, right? So this is a normal kind of rule when it comes to square rooting, and it's actually more to do with indices and stuff, but this is the same. So in this case, I can actually take plus minus the square root of 45, and what's the square root of 4? It's 2. So I can just kind of change that. So the top part can't square because it's not a square number. But the bottom could, and here I'm going to do the same. So here I would have a plus minus at the top, b squared minus 4ac at the top, but at the bottom I can take the square root of that, because 4 is a square number and a squared is a square number, and I'm left with 2a. Nicely here I have a 2 and a 2, so this is going to work out really great for me, where I say x is equal to plus minus the square root of 45 over 2 minus 5 over 2. So these fractions are the same. So the denominators are the same, so I actually have enough space. Can you believe it? I'm going to take the -5 to the front, just so that it kind of looks the same as the quadratic equation. And there we go, over 2. And that's kind of where we end here. You can use your calculator from here to find the positive and negative value of like the square root of 45. Here I'm going to do the same thing. The x is going to stay here. This is a plus b, so it's going to be a negative b on this side, still over 2a. And then there's the plus minus, which is all over 2a. So basically I can just extend this. And then I have b squared minus 4ac, and it's all over 2a. And this is the quadratic formula. So basically just completing the square with this. Now, you should have been able to follow the things that I did, although you probably wouldn't want to do this on your own. But kind of what we did, like moving stuff around, that's very normal. You should be able to do that. The only thing that makes this look so intimidating is because we had no numbers. We did everything just with variables. Here you would have, I mean, if you look at this, it looks crazy, but you should have been able to follow around and say, yeah, sure, I get that, etc. So hope this helped you. Yeah, see you in the next one.